Hey, you're listening to Mystic Dummies. This is your host, Siona.
And this is Jennifer. This podcast is where we bring our life experiences, have conversations, and shine a light upon everyday mysteries.
From mysteries of this world to the mysteries of ourselves, we talk about it all.
If you are looking for a sign, this is it. Tune in to Mystic Dummies every week right here.
Listen now. This week, we are talking about fear of change. So, what do you think fear of change is? Like, what are your thoughts about it?
So, I've always been really afraid of and frightened of change, and this is not until very recently that I have realized it.
Yeah, like I totally get it. I came across this concept by Carl Jung called mesonism, which is what he calls the fear of change or fear of the unknown. And as you said, change is a scary proposition. Like being afraid of change is natural. And being a student of psychology, like I have to talk to you about like it's a part of a fight or flee instincts. We develop habits that we feel comfortable with and resist changing them, even when that change is for the better. But I do want to know why do we fear change? Why are we so scared when change is actually good for us?
For me, it is because I'm always trying to know the outcome of whatever I do. I want to know my chances of winning. And
Yeah.
as humans, we all naturally do that. We like to predict so that then we can control things.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we can control the outcome and sometimes we cannot.
Yeah,
But we can always choose how we react to it, right?
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's our choice to embrace change, work to make it better, fight it, or ignore it. Often, our level of fear is based on the degree of the consequences that affect our current life situation. It's not even about the future. I mean, another thing stopping us from changing is comfort. What do you think about it? Like, what do you think about us being in those comfort zones?
So, change always requires us to get out of our comfort zone. Change always requires us to get out of our comfort zone. We will never ever grow in life if we refuse to come out of our comfort zone.
I mean,
Sometimes,
it's
yeah,
it's just like like staying in bed and doing everything because of this COVID situation, and we're
yeah,
just so comfortable like staying over there that we just don't want to get out. But we
yeah,
need to know that it's not going to last forever, and we just have to go for it.
yeah. So sometimes we get so comfortable at our current point of life that we feel threatened if something even slightly unusual happens in our daily life. Just like you said, like we get so comfortable just lying in bed not doing anything. And if something comes, some situation comes when we have to get out of there, we have to
Yeah.
take a bath, we need to change our clothes and do something. It can feel really uh, difficult. It can seem very difficult at first to get out of that. But imagine that we didn't have that situation. Imagine we just laid there the whole day. So that change was so important, right?
Yeah. I mean, definitely, I agree with you completely because comfort zone is gets so comfortable that we will never grow there. Like we like our old ways, which set into a routine and pattern, and we keep following that regardless of whether it is harming us or not.
Yeah,
We just don't want any change because we don't know what's on the other side. We're like so scared to peek into the other side that we don't
yeah,
want to change like what, because like I think we had a conversation before about it, about how we anticipate fear. Like you remember that?
yeah. So before you start calling yourself out for this behavior, let me tell you that this isn't just you. We are all conditioned that way. The fear of the unknown is a very real fear because it might bring danger. Like you were saying, how we are
Yeah, I mean
anticipating.
like huh. I mean, fear of the unknown is like so real because early humans were scared of numerous things, and it's a very primitive fear system that we have like
Yeah.
developed inside us. Because
Yeah.
as I was saying, early humans were scared of so many things like thunder, lightning, suns, birds, floods, and of course the wildlife and those poisonous plants.
Oh my God.
I mean, this fear system was
Yeah. Sounds like a difficult time. Yeah.
definitely. I mean, a fear system was built up to help the species survive and assess danger. But as we modernize our society, we still have that primitive system that helps us assess real and anticipated fear. One of them being the fear of change.
Now that sums it up and helps us look at this fear from a different perspective altogether. So, as humans, we love sticking to a pattern, a routine, because it is safe and because we can always predict our next move. But when this pattern gets disrupted, like we said earlier, we feel threatened. This is exactly what is known as fear of the unknown. We think that whatever we don't know out there is dangerous because it is uncertain.
Exactly. We don't like our routine to be interrupted. Like, let me give you an example. Let's look at the outlook of society on homosexuality. It's always been there, but now that its people are out and proud and spreading awareness, the groups of people who were against it, who are against it, have their beliefs disheveled. They
Yeah.
cannot come to terms with this change, and they hang on to those passed on old beliefs that might not make any sense anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So now that we know that change is difficult, we also saw why we love sticking to a comfort zone. But as we said, we cannot grow without any change. Let me bring in this concept of vulnerability. I read a lot about it by Brené Brown, an amazing author and researcher. What Brené Brown shares through her years of research is that vulnerability is the only way to achieve what we truly desire. There is no other way to put that. Making a change is a courageous step because you're so vulnerable in that stage. I think you will agree with me on this.
Totally.
So let's see it this way. Change will make you vulnerable because, as we already said, it brings a lot of uncertainty.
Yes, and yes. To be vulnerable needs a hell lot of courage. Everyone can toughen themselves up and go on with the day, and the person with even a teensy bit of courage looks right in their own soul and lets go of their protective shield and just be vulnerable with themselves. It's only by letting go you can dive deep in the waters of your mind that will help you to change your mindset and help you grow and become a better version of yourself. I mean, courage never comes easy.
For us, starting this podcast itself was a big change and a situation where both of us allowed ourselves to be vulnerable to go through with this entire project. And as you can see, now it's turned into an actual podcast which you are listening to. So
and like I was just want to like add that
yeah,
it was not something that we were doing it like for the money part of it or for the fame part of it. It was something like, oh, you know what? How about we just have our own podcast? Like
yeah.
it's too early to have our own show because then we need a contract and all of that. But I think we can start with podcast because it's just us talking and because we do this on a regular basis. Like whenever we are talking to each other, sometimes we just go into these very deep intellectual talks and just have this conversation. So we just came to our head, why not just make a podcast out of it?
And this is just our first podcast which you're listening to, but
yeah,
and we are just at the beginning of it. But I would like to say that it's been a really great experience for me, just in a way where I have got to learn so much, and I can't imagine how it was before we used to meet regularly for these podcast meetings. So just see that change you wouldn't know what is the outcome of a change, but you should always trust that change is a process, and
Mhm.
it is not always as scary as it seems in our mind. So Siona, would you like to elaborate on this point?
Yeah, I mean, see, like we said about our own podcast journey, I can give you a more simpler example about how we can work towards it. Like, for example, if you want to be a reader and complete reading many books, several books in a year, but the thing is you've never read or you don't read frequently, the first step would be to get the book and read at least the first 10 pages or even just the first page. By reading one page every day, you can convert it into an habit and reach your goal. I mean, it obviously takes effort to make that change in life, and it does not happen in a day because, as we know, Rome wasn't built in one day.
And even when we know what we want, we still hesitate to start, which again links to the fear of change. We give ourselves so many reasons to not start an endeavor or continue it, but we should always be aware that most of the reasons which stop you are internal. And if you hear them and reason with them, you can unlearn them. And then you won't have so many internal hurdles stopping you from transforming yourself.
The last thing I can think about why we fear change is because we fear impermanence. Like, we're so attached to everything, dude. Like, we're
Yeah,
so attached. Like,
yeah,
change can end certain old patterns and relationships,
yeah,
and we can get away with
yeah.
those things. Like, I want to ask, is this fear real?
So, as we discussed earlier, and this is something we both really emphasize greatly, that again, fear is not in the situation, it is in the mind. It was never in the situation. It was just in our mind. We always will feel that something out there is trying to get us. But that's what is our mind. That's what our mind is telling us, that it is dangerous when actually it's not. And because of the fear system that we have in our body, which actually protects us from danger, our brain goes into a defensive mode when it is approached with something new and unknown. But you also think, give it a thought, that is everything new and unknown dangerous? What if this change actually brings something good in our life?
Yeah, I mean, when we do feel scared, we gotta ask ourselves what exactly evokes that certain fear in us. For example, if you're scared of water, what is it about water that scares you? The waves, the water bodies, the depth of the ocean, the sea creatures? Until unless you don't know what scares you, you won't be able to tackle it. Having said this, of course, don't confuse real danger with perceived danger. We should have an awareness of which situations are truly unsafe.
Yes, definitely. And we all need to keep this in mind. So, how we have spoken about change, and just think how truly amazing it is if we can just let go of the fear.
Change helps us see new perspectives and new possibilities. It is the only way to grow. I mean, yeah, it is the only way to grow. Learn and
It is.
explore and grab new opportunities in front of us. Like, through change, we can see the world in so many different ways. Change is good. It helps us to grow and be more closer to our best selves, the one we dream of becoming. Even if we try to resist change, change is inevitable.
That's so true. Change is the only constant. I mean, look at how the
Tell
seasons
that to
keep.
your physics teacher.
So, I mean, look at how the seasons keep changing. Yeah,
Nothing stays the same forever. So I don't think we can expect us, such complex beings, to stay the same too. We need to shed our old and step into our new selves, just like the snakes. I mean, yeah.
yeah. And how true, how else will we heal ourselves if we don't let go of our old self? This silly fear of change will always stop us from exploring our potential.
Yeah, I mean, fear can act as a buffer to stop you from striving for your potential. Going back to why we fear change, it needs courage, and courage does not come easy.
So how can we just start with it and bring the change which we want?
The first very step, like I said, is to just show up. I mean, dip your feet in that water, see how it feels. Even for the new shift in your life to work perfectly, you need to be consistent and disciplined. Every change requires patience and time. Unless you don't dip your toes in the water, you cannot anticipate whether it's hot or cold. Take the jump, make mistakes, and learn from it. And after all, it's always about the journey, honey, and not the destination.
Exactly. So how you said that every change needs us to be consistent and disciplined. So whatever change you really wish, make sure that you are able to be consistent with that.
Yeah. I mean, don't allow fear of change to trap you into the life that you don't want. While change may seem terrifying, the real tragedy is living a life that does not bring you any joy.
True. As we conclude today's episode, one last piece of advice we would like to share is you are the author of your book. You should know when to start a new chapter or to end the previous one.
Thank you for tuning in. Wishing you luck and lots of love.
See you next week.
Until then, this was me, Siona.
And this was me, Jennifer.
Mystic Dummies,
signing off.